Welcome to the Creator's Adventure, where we interview creators from around the world hearing their stories about growing a business. My name is Brian McAnulty. I'm the founder of Heights Platform, and today I'm talking with Monique Muro about how she grew a business around proofreading online courses, how she overcame imposter syndrome, and the importance of keeping your content consistent. All right, hey everyone. We're here today with Monique Muro, an online course copy proofreader from Los Angeles, who teaches people how to write clear, error-free course copy with her course Copy Essentials. Monique, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So you have your business, Proof Mango. And before you created this, you were a virtual assistant to online course creators.
Yes.
What made you decide to open up your own business and switch to proofreading and everything that you're doing today?
Yeah, so I was a virtual assistant for a while, and when you're a virtual assistant, you're doing all kinds of things. You're helping people set up their email, you're writing, you're blogging, you're proofreading in my case. And in my case, I was doing a lot of different things, but I really felt that I liked proofreading out of all those things. It was like my favorite thing. So I was happy as a virtual assistant, but I kind of felt the itch to do proofreading more. So I kind of ignored the itch for a while. And one of my clients, he had his own online course on sales funnels, and his course had been launched, and I was kind of helping him proofread sales pages, proofread blog posts, all that stuff. But then he got an email from one of his students, and they were complaining about the typos in the course. So he instantly messaged me and was like, hey, can you proofread my course? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. Like, that sounds so fun. And that was the moment where I realized, oh my gosh, like, I like proofreading. I love online courses. I think I kind of want to make it a thing where I'm proofreading online course copy. And that's kind of where this whole thing came from. And at that moment, this was like the end of 2017, I was like, I think I'm going to drop like all my virtual assistant clients and just like go forward doing proofreading for just course creators. And so that's kind of how I got my start. That's kind of how the whole thing came about, from virtual assistants to now proofreading course copy.
Cool. So with your business, of course, I imagine you are reviewing a lot of different online courses.
Yeah.
What is the most common mistake that you see course creators make, both in terms of like copywriting or even just more general like course creation practices?
Yeah, so as a proofreader, you see all kinds of different courses, all kinds of different copy and such. I would say the biggest mistake that people make is just an inconsistency. Usually, like, if you're putting out something nice, you want it to be consistent and nice. But I would say I see a lot of inconsistency in spelling. Words like, say you're spelling the word copywriting. 80% of the time you're spelling it the full name, copywriting, one word. And then the rest you're spelling it two words. Proofreaders just pick up on that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Also just in capitalization, like you're putting out this course, it's probably expensive. You want it to look nice and professional. And like the lesson titles and module titles, often the capitalization will be a little off, and it gives it kind of like an off-kilter look when you look at the course type of thing. And just also inconsistency in naming things, like I feel like course creators on video, they'll be like, hey, download my planning guide, and then in the resources section, it won't be called the planning guide. It'll be called, Funnel Hacks Part 1 or whatever. And, it's just like there's a lot of inconsistency, and I feel like that disrupts the learning. When you're learning, it's already hard for people to sit down and learn something for 10 minutes. And when you have this weird inconsistency stuff going on and they have to think, their phone's going to light up, they're going to get distracted, they're not even going to come back to it. Just try to make things really consistent and clear. And that's kind of the biggest thing I see as a proofreader for courses, inside of courses. It's just a lot of inconsistency, but it's easy to fix. So yeah, that's the one thing that I think really stands out.
Well, yeah, that really makes sense. Because when you're the learner, you're actively trying to digest everything that's there in that course.
Yes.
And then when you're trying so hard to figure everything out and then you see those inconsistencies, definitely I see how that could throw someone off. So it's not just about wanting to make sure like your product is like as premium or it has the feel that you want it to have, but also to help the learner actually go through it.
Exactly. Yes. I see it
Interesting.
all the time. Yeah. And you're just so grateful for their attention anyway. You want to make sure you hold it and not make them think, why is that not this? Don't send them down a rabbit hole.
Hmm. Yeah, and also the point about the naming the content as the way that you're talking about it or something, or you mentioned somewhere else, because like we've seen like some creators, they have their one course and maybe that course has a community aspect, maybe that course has like a coaching add-on or some digital product, but maybe that's it. But other creators, they have so much content, they have all these different courses, all these different lead magnets, all these different things. And for the student to get in there the first time, if that's all visible to the student, it's a lot for the student to figure out, like, okay, what am I supposed to go to next? What am I supposed to click on?
Yeah.
And as a course creator, like we try to make it as easy as possible for our creators. But as a course creator, you want to be able to lead your student or your customer through that journey as
Yeah.
effortlessly as possible. And it definitely, you don't want to overwhelm them. You don't want to make them be hunting for things because that's something that can cause them to say, I'll check this later or I'll figure this out later. And then they don't come back.
Exactly. Exactly. And the course is to make them so they don't have to hunt and peck for information, right? It's supposed to all be streamlined there for them. So totally.
Cool. So let's see. Other than helping people with their copywriting, their proofreading, you also sell your own online courses. So do you feel that your job as a virtual assistant beforehand and then becoming the proofreader, did that help you skip any of the bigger obstacles when creating your own online course, or did you still encounter some challenges?
I think it definitely helps that I was pretty tech savvy because I was a virtual assistant. So I had no problem, using a course platform or anything like that. Definitely there's always tech challenges, but I didn't feel like I had too many with that. And then of course, being a proofreader was helpful. I'm also a writer. So, I didn't feel like my copy was going to necessarily be bad. But I definitely still had challenges. And I think with all course creators, no matter what you do, no matter what your background, when it comes to your first course, you are going to have challenges in creating it. You definitely will. And so for me, I definitely experienced time as a major challenge because at the time I had a full-time job and I had pre-sold my course and I made like a few sales from it. But then I had to actually create it and on a timeline. And with a full-time job, that was really hard for me to do. I overestimated, how much I was going to be able to get done in a small amount of time. And I was like, oh yeah, I definitely can create, my first 2 modules in a month or like a month and a half. And I ended up having to push back the dates because it took me longer than I thought. And that was a real bummer. And, I think, you don't realize how long stuff is going to take you. So those challenges for me were kind of the big ones. It definitely helped the tech side I got, proofreading and writing, that was helpful, but there's so many different things that go into creating a course that I definitely had my own challenges getting stuff completed on time and in the hands of the people who already bought it. So, yeah, it was definitely still challenging for sure.
Okay, so yeah, I would say a lot of people, not just in courses, but in anything in business, anything you're creating, it's easy to underestimate how quickly you can get done maybe the first 90%, but then how long it takes the last 10%.
Yeah.
Because you think like, okay, I've made so much progress, I can make these dates, but then all these other little things that you maybe didn't consider take a lot longer than you thought.
Yes.
So having gone through that now, if you were going to start again today, what would you do differently?
I would give myself a longer runway for that first module to hit. I feel like at the beginning you get really excited and you're like, oh yeah, I can do this in 6 weeks. I would definitely give myself a longer amount of time and not be afraid to tell my buyers that it's going to take 3 months for this first module to hit. I would rather deliver it on time than tell them, oh, it'll be done in a month. Oh, sorry, no, 1 more month. Oh, sorry, 2 more weeks. It just makes you look bad. So if I were to do it all over again, I would absolutely give myself a longer runway, because just to account for anything that could go wrong too. You never know what kind of family stuff that's going to crop up or anything like that. You just need to account for that, especially when people are already giving you money. You want to make good on those promises. So that for me was the biggest stressor, and I would definitely give myself a longer runway and not be afraid to do it.
All right, interesting. So kind of related to this. So we see a lot of new online course creators experience what's called imposter syndrome, and like the feeling that you're not good enough, you're not really an expert enough to really be teaching others. Do you see this from your clients, or is this something you experienced yourself? And what would you suggest to someone who is going through those feelings?
Yeah, so with my clients, they don't really open up to me too much about that. I feel like I know we all probably have it on some level, but I definitely have it. And I think in the beginning, you feel really excited about creating a course, and you're like, I have all this knowledge to share, I'm so excited. And then when you're about halfway through it or doing your research, you realize it's a lot of work, and you kind of start doubting whether you're the person to do it. And for me, about halfway through my course, I definitely faced the challenge of wondering if I was the person to be teaching this. And I, of course, was looking at other people who were teaching similar things. And I'm like, why should I teach this if this person is so good at teaching it? Like, I just don't know if I'm the right person. No one wants to learn from me. And I think it was around module 2, when I was creating module 2 in my course, I was like, I think I'm just going to call it. Like, I don't know if I want to do this. I was like, I could just refund the people and, I just go back and not do anything, because maybe this isn't the right course topic. I was not feeling good. I was very close to quitting, just because that imposter syndrome really took over. I felt like a complete fraud, and I just didn't feel good. But I think everyone is going to feel like that. I think also maybe I was just too tired. And what I would say is you just maybe take a break. Maybe take a day or 2 off to kind of think about it. But also that voice is always going to crop up. You just kind of have to let it be there and do it anyway. Just kind of push through, because honestly, having a finished course to this day makes me so happy. Like, I'm so glad that with the imposter syndrome, you kind of just have to let it be there, because it's going to be there. Kind of keep it on the side next to you, and just go through anyway and see what happens. Just see what happens. Experiment, because honestly, if you don't do it, you'll just never know. Maybe you are an imposter and you go and you put out something, and then everyone's like, you're an imposter, but that's not going to happen. It's just not. So my advice is to just do it anyway. I know it's scary, and I know you're going to feel like a fraud, but you just have to do it anyway. The result, the reward of having an online course is so awesome. You're going to feel better once it's done.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, it's something that, let's see. So if you don't really give it all that effort, if you don't really go through with it and say, well, I gave this everything I could, then you're always going to have some kind of doubt or uncertainty in yourself, saying, well, could I have launched that course? Would it have been successful? Like, do I actually know what I'm talking about? Maybe I do. And so yeah, you do have to go through with it. And then the other thing, what I would add to that is to say that even when you see someone else out there, even if you think, oh, well, they're teaching something similar to me, and they're actually doing a really great job, and they've actually been doing this so long. The thing is that with an online course, it's so different from almost every other kind of product that you can create, because it's really unique to you. So no matter what, you as a creator are going to have these experiences that other people just haven't had.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some kind of unique viewpoint that you're bringing to your particular course that makes it different no matter what. And so whether you feel that you're at the same level of somebody else or not, it doesn't really matter, because you still have a unique product that, without a doubt, it has to be valuable to some level of people. As long as you are a step above the people that you can help, then it's going to be valuable to them.
Yeah, and I heard a really good quote too. Amy Porterfield put on a virtual event not too long ago, and she had a guest who basically said, if not you, then who? Who else is going to do it? And that really struck me, because I was like, we all have these unique talents that we can really give the world. And, not everyone is the same. And that's a great thing, and you can use your personality too, to really infuse in your course and teach people the way that is unique to your personality. So I think just remembering that is really important too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's going to be people out there who prefer to learn from you or prefer to take your course, not even just because of the content, but because of your personality and because of the way that you're delivering it.
Exactly.
Cool. So I think many course creators today, they're working really hard they try to create the perfect content for their course, and that's great, but they are sometimes underestimating maybe the importance of having some very powerful and clean writing on their site, especially like on that first landing page that prospects may see. So why is it so crucial that someone does have very clean and polished writing for their online course?
Online courses are teaching. So it's so important to have something clean and clear, because you need to get a point across. You can't, it's not like a blog where you can kind of just talk and talk and talk, that kind of thing. It's really important to have something really clean and clear so they can get to the finish line. And what I would recommend too for that is to have a course goal to keep yourself in line. Because otherwise you just kind of go all over the map. And if you're not clear, if you're rambling, if you're going on these different tangents, people are going to think you actually don't know what you're talking about. And they're going to think that you're wasting their time. So you really don't want people to think that you're wasting their time, especially when they buy a course from you, like an actual product. So important to be clear and so important to be error-free, because they are buying a product and you don't want those crazy typos to be there. With unpaid products, like blogs and such, the random typo I feel is fine. But when they're paying $500 to get a course from you, really important for it to look good. Not look good like it needs to be majorly fancy and the recording needs to be great, but it just needs to be polished in the sense that it doesn't look sloppy, with the typos and such. Like I said, clear copy helps them get to the finish line. So that's the main thing. You can't clutter it up with all this other stuff. Very important to get to the point.
Okay, so let's say that there's a creator out there who they're building their course and they say that, okay, I get it. Monique, that makes sense. I want to have this clear copy. I want to make sure that there's no errors in it. But they decide that they want to do this themselves. What would you suggest to them if they want to start this proofreading process, start going over these things themselves? What should they check?
Yes, I love this. First thing, install the Grammarly extension. Very important. It really helps when you're writing. But my process as a proofreader is, and anyone can do this, you can just, if you read the copy more than once, just read it more than once, you will find something. Like for me, as a proofreader, I have a process where I read it like 4 to 5 times, and I always find something on the 5th time. I'll read it 4 times and I'm like, that's probably good. But I always find something on the 5th time. And I'm like, imagine if a student found that and they're like, oh my God, this girl, I can't believe she made that egregious error. So I would recommend read it a few times, read it very slowly, because you will catch like the words that, when we're writing, we have like words that we mistype or that we forget to include a the or an a or an and. You'll catch that if you read it really slowly. And I also find reading it out loud is very helpful, because you really catch that stuff that your eyes are just going to miss. So read it again, read it slow, and install that Grammarly extension for anything else, because that's really going to help. It helps me. Even as a proofreader, when you're writing, you just miss commas and such, and very, very helpful.
Definitely. Yeah. Our whole team uses that. It's definitely super helpful.
I
find that I would like to think at least that I tend to be pretty good at not making too many like spelling mistakes or things like that when I write, but still it's definitely helps me catch things, because everybody's going to make mistakes. And definitely it's important I think that's a great tip, to read it slower, because if you read it too fast, you're kind of going through it in your mind the exact same way that you just wrote it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to make that connection of realizing, oh, well, I shouldn't have wrote that thing, or I'm missing a word here or something like that.
Yeah. I feel like we're really confident in our writing too. Like when it's out in our head and we put it on paper, we're like, boom, done, got it, and you
Yep,
don't
yep.
realize that you totally, missed a few words or added a double word or, stuff like that. So yeah, definitely. It's important. Slowly helps. And it's hard to read slow, but give it some time. You can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to find mistakes. And on the other side of our business, the product side, where we're building the software, we want to find mistakes. It's scary to think like, oh, why is everything working with this new feature? There's got to be something that's not
Oh
right.
yeah.
It's a lot more reassuring if you can go through and find things, and then you feel like, okay, well now it's better. Now we've settled things. So it's frightening to not know if there's mistakes or not see the mistakes yet. So going
I
through a couple
know.
times definitely
I
helps.
go through every piece of copy that comes my way. I just tell myself there is a mistake here, and I will find it. I'm not going to stop until I find at least one error, and sometimes that helps.
Interesting. So you also have to do some SEO in your business. Can you share a little bit more about how that helps your business and maybe a few tricks, in your opinion, that might help online course creators with their rankings? Because as we talked about real quick before we started this interview, there's all kinds of creators out there. Some of them are really into online courses, maybe more so like you, but then others feel like, well, I just really like this thing that I'm doing, that I'm creating. I want to make a course about it, but I don't want to figure out all these things I have to learn about online marketing. I think I've understood that now, but what about SEO? I don't know that. So what are some things that can help a creator out there if they want to start with SEO?
Yeah, SEO is really awesome. I took a course on it. I love writing and I love blogging. You have to find some sort of channel to build an audience. Blogging is mine. Basically, SEO, it can be very complex, but there's things that people can do that are very simple. Keyword research is obviously one of them. I use an extension, I believe it's called Keywords Everywhere. And essentially what I do is I write my content and I'm like, okay, this is good. This is my content. And then I look at the content and I do a few keyword searches of like, what would be a good keyword that people would search to find this content. And usually I go for like, if you install that Keyword Everywhere extension, it'll show you like how many searches that gets per month. Let's say a key phrase like online course tips or something. So I put it in and I'm like, oh, okay, like how much search volume is it? And you want to go for the low search volume because the high search volume is really competitive. So pick a key phrase that has kind of a low search volume, like 100 maybe searches a month, something low because you're just starting out, and use that in your title. And then in your, like they call it H1, like an H2. So like the
Header
headline.
tags and
Yeah, in your blog. And then I look for related keywords. So if you type in online course tips, even if you don't have this extension at the bottom of Google, how it shows like other stuff that people are searching, try and infuse, look at the search volume for those and try and infuse some of those related keywords in your post too, because I don't know the tech aspect of it, but I know that it gives you more juice, if you use them more. You're not stuffing the keywords in there, using it naturally, but kind of just putting a few here and there in the content really helps. And then putting it in your URL slug as well. That is a big thing. And then if you have images on your site, I think it's called the alt tag, but putting those key phrases, some of the keywords in the image alt tag as well, I find that that's really helpful. And honestly, just doing this for my blog posts is like given me so much traffic, not overnight, but I started in 2018 blogging and using some of these tactics. And then by 2020, I started at the end of 2018. I would say maybe like 8 or 9 months later, I started getting traffic that was, I want to call it like floating, not like spiking traffic, but like traffic that was just kind of like floating on its own, which was awesome. And then I started noticing that subscribers were coming in weekly, then daily, just because of the traffic of the posts. And it does take some work, blogging is work, because it has to be a really high value post too. It can't, just be fluff with a lot of examples. But if you commit to just even just like 5 to 10 really good blog posts over time, if you use some SEO tactics, that's going to get some volume. And you're going to start seeing, if you have opt-ins, of course, not just writing, but if you have like CTAs to subscribe, you're going to start noticing that you'll get subscribers over time just automatically. Like I get a handful of subscribers still a week, and I haven't blogged in months. It's just kind of something, it just keeps on giving, that gift that keeps on giving, which is awesome because you don't have a lot of time as a course creator. You're doing all kinds of stuff, So that's what I really love about SEO. Is like, it's a lot of work kind of upfront for a few months, but then it really pays off for years. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good for creators to hear that that it does pay off, because it's hard to think, okay, I wrote my article, where's the traffic? But it doesn't happen immediately. You do have to really commit to it, really be consistent, make a good amount of content. Eventually, it will start to get more and more traffic. And once it starts to have that traffic, it will stay there for a while.
Yeah.
But it does require that investment up front. Mm-hmm. And like you said, I think you made also a good point that you don't have to be so technical. It's not really too technical with SEO. That's not actually important, worrying about too much of the technical stuff. You just have to make good content that you're looking at, well, how would somebody else think to search for this in Google? What would they write it? And what would they search for this topic? Yeah. And the algorithm is good now, that it's pretty fair, I think, that if you do have the good content, if you are the best source for that, then you'll be near the top of the results for that particular thing. So I do think it's pretty fair. You don't have to trick the system or do some secret hacks to mess with it. Just if you keep making that good content, it'll work out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it is. Like I said, it's not super easy, but it's not super hard. I think people can do it. I always think, like, if I can do it, people can do it. Like it's just those tips that I just listed will help. So.
Sure. Okay, well, one other thing we like to do on this show is we want to have our guests engage with our audience. So if you could ask our audience anything, what would be something that you'd want to ask and know from our audience?
What is your course writing process? Like, how do you take your course idea and flesh it out into an outline and an actual course? I feel like everyone, writes their copy differently, and I'm always curious to know, like, how course creators are writing their copy. Like, how are they using Post-its? Are they doing outlines? Like, I would love to know your course writing process on how you're writing your copy.
That's great. Yeah, there's so many processes can work, but if you're just starting out and you're trying to figure out what is the process that feels natural for me, I think it can be really helpful for seeing what other people are doing.
I like that. Yeah, me too. That's why I'm always curious. I'm like, what process are you doing? It's cool.
Cool. All right. Well, Monique, this was such a great interview. Thank you again for coming on. Before we go, where can people find you online?
You can find me online at proofmango.com and at proofmango on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.